Welcome into TYT Sports, everybody. I am Rick Strom. Please do follow me on Twitter at Rick Strom as well for more sports news that is going to be put on the channel, also at youtube.com/TYT Sports. So Canelo Álvarez has maybe one of the weirdest things happen to him, but it turns out, as I'm going to show you a little bit later on, it might be prominent in his home country. Here is what occurred today and also yesterday via ESPN.
Canelo Álvarez has traces of the banned drug Clenbuterol, a voluntary test has showed.
So Clenbuterol is essentially tainted meat that showed up, that he ate, that then showed up as a banned substance. Now for a moment, as you're going to see right here, for a guy who has been squeaky clean, leads his division, the divisional rankings via ESPN, and Dan Raphael, who does great work at the mothership, this is a little surprising for someone who has never really had a problem with drug testing. Now, you're probably also thinking, come on, man. This has to be one of the worst excuses. Like, this has to go along the lines of these excuses in sports.
The winner of the 2006 Tour de France had his title tarnished. Landis tested positive for doping after testosterone and epitestosterone were found in his system, and he was stripped of the victory. But Landis claimed that this was because of his large consumption of whiskey.
The Thunder's win against the Knicks last night may have been secured here at the Skirvin.
The legend of someone or something disturbed some famous guests.
Where'd he come from?
None other than the New York Knicks, who lost to the Thunder Monday night. Forward Jared Jeffries says it's scary. Knicks center Eddie Curry had his room on the 10th floor, the haunt of the supposed ghost. He says, that's why I spent most of my time in Nate Robinson's room. I definitely believe there are ghosts in that hotel.
Yep, it's the notorious Luis Suarez, the fully grown 30-year-old man capable of making his own decisions, who claimed that he fell into Giorgio Chiellini's shoulder at the 2014 World Cup.
Cyclist Tyler Hamilton had to explain why somebody else's blood was in his veins. He claimed a vanished twin absorbed by his body in the womb. The court didn't buy it.
Now, does Canelo Álvarez fall in that category? I think we're going to dispel that very soon. So here's what ESPN reported. As part of the voluntary testing program that Canelo insisted on ahead of his May 5th fight rematch against Gennady Golovkin, one of his results came back positive for trace levels of Clenbuterol, consistent with meat contamination that has impacted dozens of athletes in Mexico, Golden Boy Promotions said. He said, quote, I am an athlete who respects the sport, and this surprises me and bothers me because it never happened to me. I will submit to all the tests, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Here is why this is an important thing to take note of and why we're not just going to throw him to the wolves unless it's contaminated meat. So here's my point. The NFL put this out a while ago. Warning, when you are traveling anywhere, there is evidence that some meat produced in China and Mexico may be contaminated with Clenbuterol, an anabolic agent which is banned by the NFL. Players are warned to be aware of this issue when traveling to those countries. Please take caution if you decide to consume meat and understand that you do so at your own risk. Continuing on, Texans left tackle Dwane Brown tested positive for Clenbuterol last season. After a bye-week trip to Mexico, he ate Mexican beef. Where's the beef? After a months-long process, Brown was finally cleared in April, allowing him to avoid what would have been a 10-game suspension. Moving forward, more cases. Over 100 players test positive for banned drug Clenbuterol at the FIFA U17 World Cup in Mexico. And then there's more with Mexico. Do you follow where I'm going with this? 5 Mexico stars banned after failing drug tests. The governing body of Mexico banned 5 players from its national team after they failed drug tests taken late May before the start of an international tournament. One of my favorite names, Alberto Contador. Remember him? Even if you don't, you kind of know who he is at this point. I mean, I think John Oliver put it best. Lance Armstrong, he made us believe that cycling was cool. Which is true. So Alberto Contador has been a winner, right? Well, actually, Contador, a 3-time Tour de France champion, blamed contaminated steak for his positive doping test, vowing Thursday to clear his name so that cycling's latest drug scandal doesn't destroy everything that I have done. Like, you're not doing that enough to your knees. And then there was also a UFC fighter, flyweight contender Brandon Marino, will receive no punishment, testing positive for a banned substance that was determined to have been ingested by him without fault or negligence. And then there have been more cyclists as we continue along. All samples check for Clenbuterol. And on and on and on. Eric Morales, remember him? Hall of Fame fighter. In this fight, in the buildup to Danny Garcia, according to the New York Daily News, he got a 2-year ban afterwards, stemming from a positive test. It was Clenbuterol. Francisco Vargas, remember him? Good fighter. Interesting tattoo. Super featherweight boxing champ Francisco Vargas tests positive for a banned substance. My point is, as I'm now presenting all the facts, at first you're like, wait a minute. Like, isn't this just another like Tyler Hamilton-like thing where an athlete is trying to cover up what he did to his body in order to unseat an opponent and then obviously bring his name to glory and have it be that he is going to not only be a champion, but also that he is going to impact the effect of any bout, any sport. It doesn't matter. So when we are looking at this, because I've seen a lot of people on social media. Now, granted, social media is a place where you're literally fed to the wolves. And we should get shirts that say, don't read the comments. But on top of this, don't go down Canelo Álvarez's throat when you don't have all the facts to be presented to you. That's why we're trying to do this, to educate you that Clenbuterol is actually a very serious thing that has occurred in China. I saw traces of it in Japan, and we've seen traces of it in Mexico. This is a very, very serious drug. It is something that is illegal in those countries, yet farmers are continually doing it to their meat, to their cows specifically, and that is why the NFLPA, along with now even Golden Boy Promotions, is saying if you travel to these countries, do not try to eat any of what could be contaminated meat. Because think about it, Dwane Brown, who we're going to get into once again in a moment with the Houston Texans owner Bob McNair and the comments that he had recently, Dwane Brown was almost suspended for 10 games for doing nothing wrong. Canelo Álvarez nearly missed this fight. Now, is Golden Boy going to put it off? Absolutely not. It's going to be the money-making cash cow of a prize fight for this year that they badly need. Unless, of course, Deontay Wilder ends up fighting Anthony Joshua. But still, boxing needs the fight. Golden Boy needs the fight. Every time Canelo Álvarez fights, not only is it over Cinco de Mayo weekend, which has been his norm every single year, but he also just brings in that many more fans and that much more fanfare in order for boxing to try and bring themselves to the lights and have that one day or a few days a year. So, my main point, try not to jump down his throat, because it's really not his fault.